Boy, oh boy, the devil is not having it with me right now. He does not like me right now. Yesterday, I posted a video about the correlation between the new moon and the Sabbath. This Saturday Sabbath is such an incredible, such a massive lie, such a massive deception in counterfeit Christianity. And so, as we've been discerning the calendar, God brought us out of this lie in science that the dark moon is the new moon. No, God didn't send you out to go look for darkness. The waxing crescent, when that shows up, that's the new moon. No, the Saturn Day Sabbath that the Roman Catholic Church convinced the Jews that that was Sabbath, or gave to the Jews, and then changed Christian Sabbath, so-called Christian Sabbath, to Sunday. That's not Sabbath either, not according to God's word. We've been observing a what correlates to a Saturday Sabbath because that's what we had understood. But God keeps bringing us out of Babylon, and I'm going to tell you something. I am exhausted. I'm so tired. I feel like I got beat over the head with a sledgehammer because of what God has drugged me through the last few days to discern this. But I know that this is true, and I want to show you some more proof in the Word because I'm going to keep testing this to make sure that it's true. But I want to tell you something that happened with me. A couple things happened with me, actually, while I was studying this. There was a lot of warfare that was coming against me, like distractions, attacks in my body, exhaustion, confusion. There were things like this that were going on, and I had to stay really, really firm in God. So I kind of knew that something was happening. I just didn't know yet what God was going to reveal. So in hindsight, now I can look at it and go, oh, yeah, I can see that that was an attack. And I really did. At the time, I thought, this feels like this feels like an attack. This feels like the devil's trying to come against what I'm doing. Well, this morning, God tested me. So here's the thing. The devil is not allowed to just relentlessly attack us. God is always using that. And so you have to remember that anytime that the devil is attacking or tempting, God is testing. And when the devil is attacking, one of the things that he's shown me is, look how important this is to him. So he allows it to get my attention and to show me how important this breakthrough is going to be. I'm hoping that's clear for you. It should be clear for you. But you have to come out of that counterfeit way of thinking that the devil has more power than God, because that's really essentially what counterfeit Christianity is proposing, that the devil can just do whatever he wants and there's some equal battle between God and the devil. There's a guy, I don't even know what book he wrote, but on the cover of the book, he's supposedly writing a book about prophecy and stuff like that. But on the cover of the book is Satan and God arm wrestling. Do you see the irony and the falsehood in that? The devil and God are not arm wrestling. God talks about putting the devil on a little string like a bird and showing the women. And he says, "Can you do this? Can you put a hook in Leviathan?" Do you think God and the devil are arm wrestling? That seems to be what counterfeit Christianity actually thinks. It couldn't be farther from the truth. God is sovereign over all. How are you going to take the creator of Lucifer, of Satan, and put him on an equal plane with his own creation? That's just wildly stupid. Has God lost control of his experiment in a lab or something? No, that's just stupidity. God is sovereign. God is not more sovereign than Satan because Satan is not sovereign. God is sovereign overall. Period. End of sentence. So this morning, God tested me. And so I went to bed at peace. I was so happy. God finally solved this mystery of why it was that he anointed me on May 18th, 2022, instead of the day after what I was thinking was the Sabbath, which was Saturday. And I've talked about that in videos. I've told you, I know what God did. Never once did I say, well, maybe I was wrong. I've never said that. I've just said God has every ability to reveal why he did that, why he would do that on a Wednesday, because Pentecost has to be the day after the Sabbath. He'll reveal it. And that's where I left it. He'll reveal it. I believe that he has the ability to reveal and to provide wisdom. And I also believe that that's his will. Another weird thing happened, and that is that during that year, I also had believed from counterfeit Judaism that Pentecost 2022 was on June 4th. So when God said to me, I am going to anoint my witnesses on Pentecost, I waited for June 4th. I knew what he did on May 18th. That was undeniable. I talked about it in a video. I did not put it together that that was Pentecost because I wouldn't have known that. I was looking forward to June 4th. So the reason I'm talking about this, the reason I'm telling you this, that he's revealed these things after the fact, is because this is what he's doing. I don't know why, but I actually think it's pretty brilliant. And I actually see that he's revealing his glory because there's no way that I could have known what I didn't know back then. And you see how long it is? What is this, January 23rd, 2024? This is over a year and a half later that he's revealing to me why it is that he did that on a Wednesday, or what correlates to a Wednesday. So yesterday I talked about this, and I spoke about this, what's called a lunisolar calendar. I think that's an appropriate name. But I want you to be really careful. Don't be going on. I mean, if you go on videos where people are talking about lunisolar calendar, you're going to ingest some garbage, because I talk in that video that I posted yesterday. I break it down for you. I break down both sides of the argument, those who are against it and those who are for it, and what those who are for it are saying. They're not speaking in truth. They're not totally speaking in truth. They've done some very weird things that are not biblical in order to fit everything into a puzzle that they want to believe. In order for all those pieces to fit, well, that is garbage. Like, there's no... If that's the heart with which you're going to come at this, God's not going to give you wisdom. So this morning, so I spoke about all of this, got on the right page, realized, my goodness, okay, so our Sabbaths are actually set on God's calendar. The 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th of God's month, not the Gregorian. And the day that he anointed me was indeed the day after the Sabbath. It was the 16th on God's month. And the 15th is a Sabbath. That's just incredible. And so I went to bed and I was so at peace. Oh my goodness, he solved this mystery. And, the things that I do here, the things that I'm doing and everything that I've given up and what I'm waiting for him to fulfill and what I'm waiting for him to take care of me, I have to know that I'm in God, you guys, because I don't have a backup plan. I gave up all my backup plans for what he has me doing. So it's a lot more to me than, oh, okay, so that was true. What it actually means to me is, oh, thank God, another confirmation that I'm yours, another confirmation that you will take care of your own, and that I am in your house, that I am functioning as a priest in your house. So it means more to me than you might be able to imagine right now, but as time goes on, you're going to understand. You are going to understand exactly what I'm saying when that Antichrist rises, and you are relying on God to the extent that I am relying on God right now. So this morning, God woke me up with like this peace that, oh my goodness, this peace doesn't fit. I had intended on sleeping in because I was on a call late last night, and my grandson came today, my daughter and my grandson. And when he comes, he is so cute, but he has so much more energy than me, and I just get super exhausted. So I had planned on sleeping in a little bit. Yeah, that wasn't God's plan. Because right when he put that in my mind, then it's like, okay, I'm up trying to figure this out. And I went through all of the feelings and the thoughts and the well, listen, if that day does not in fact line up, the only thing that matters is truth. I'm not going to go move things around in order to make it fit my puzzle. And I struggled and I was so devastated. And I actually set the video to private until I knew for certain what the truth was. And he brought me back to truth, and he finally confirmed that what I had spoken in that video was true. But see, this is the thing. God is going to keep testing you like that. He continually tests me to make sure that I am single-minded, serving him, that I don't even factor into that I'm single-minded for his name, for his purpose, and that I know that as a result of me doing that, then I'm taken care of. Not like, well, I have to take care of myself too, Lord. No, I've given up everything, you guys. I don't have any control over whether I'm taken care of. Really, I don't. I've given up all control over whether I'm going to survive day to day in this world. I gave up my money, my careers. Right now, my house is on the line. The only thing that matters is truth, right? And the truth is, even when I had that money and those careers and whatever I thought I had, I've always been at God's mercy. No turning back. There is no turning back. All right, I want to show you some scriptures that support because I'm continuing to test this today. What did I tell you? The Sabbaths are the 1st, which is the new moon, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. Now, what happens between the 29th and the 1st? There's not 7 days there. Yeah, no, there's not 7 days there. And God's word never said that there were going to be 7 days, that were going to be consecutive from one 7-day period to another 7-day period to another 7-day period. There are actually, by the moon cycles, there are 4 sets of 7-day cycles. Then there's a transition day, a work day, and another day of rest. And so the 30th day of the month is another work day. Then the 1st of the month is a rest day. So you've got the 1st, which is new moon. You have the 8th, which is the 7th day, 6 days of work, 7th day of rest. 6 days of work, 7th day of rest brings you up to the 15th. 6 days of work, 7th day of rest brings you up to the 22nd. 6 days of work, 7th day of rest brings you up to the 29th. The 30th is a work day, and then you go to a rest day again on the 1st of the month. Now, has God ever done this? Because we would kind of want to see, is there a pattern? Has God ever broken up that period of 6 days of work and then the 7th day of rest? Yes, absolutely he has. The Day of Atonement, guys. The Day of Atonement is the 10th of the month. That would be 8th day. The 8th of the month is a 7th day of rest. The 9th would be a work day, and then the 10th, another day of rest. Same pattern as what he established with the 29th being a day of rest, the 30th being a work day, and the 1st on the new moon being a day of rest. This shouldn't bog you down. It shouldn't freak you out or something, because God set that pattern. The problem is that we have this idea in our minds that we just continue along in this constant stream of 7-day periods. That's not what God established. He established work days and rest days. Let's look at Leviticus 23. So all we're going to do is look up context in the word where those 1st, 8th, and 15th days are being used. And we want to see, are there any 1st, 8th, or 15th days in which people were working? Unfortunately, there's no reference to a 22nd or a 29th day, but that doesn't really matter, because as long as he's established it with these others, then you just count down from there. And the other issue is that when you're looking up at the moon, you can see that on the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th, that you can see that the moon has cycled. You have a crescent on the 1st, you have a full quarter moon on the 8th, you have a full moon on the 15th, which the word actually tells us. Psalm 81, 3-5, blow the trumpet at the new moon, at the full moon on our feast day. So it's equating the full moon to being on the feast day. And that feast day is the 15th of the month. Couldn't be the 1st of the month, but the 15th. And every 15th of God's month, beginning with the new moon, is a full moon. So those proponents of lunisolar who are trying to make the month start during the dark moon, they're not ending up correctly positioned on God's calendar. The other issue with that is that in 1 Samuel chapter 20, we can see that they are having the feast on the 1st day of new moon and the 2nd day of new moon. On the 1st of the month and the 2nd of the month. But proponents of lunisolar, the majority of them, in fact, all of them that I researched, they claim that the first new moon occurs on the dark moon, and then the 2nd occurs on the crescent. I'm not sure how that makes sense. It has to be on the 1st of the month and the 2nd of the month. Now, that does not mean that the 2nd of the month is also a Sabbath. God's established this as well in Leviticus 23 when he's talking about his feast days. The 1st is to be a Sabbath for you, and the 8th day is to be a Sabbath for you. And it just so happens that those Sabbaths line up with the other Sabbaths, so these would be called special Sabbaths or high Sabbaths. Let's take a look. Leviticus 23, verse 6-8. On the 15th day of the month, the Lord's festival of unleavened bread begins. Okay, the 15th day of the month, remember that is going to be a full moon. That's the very middle of the month. There are 30 days in God's month. That's clear from Genesis 7 and 8, and also regarding the 1260 days that are defined to be a time times and half a time, 3.5 years. So there are 30 days in God's month. You can't change scripture to fit your narrative. It has to be that there are 30 days in God's month. So that middle of the month is the full moon. Then you're going to have another 15 days. On the 15th day of the month, the Lord's festival of unleavened bread begins. For 7 days, you must eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, so on the 15th, what did we say? When are the Sabbaths? 1, 8, 15, 22, and 29. On the first day, the 15th, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. For 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord. And on the 7th day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. When would the 7th day be from the 15th? That would be the 22nd. So here you've got the 15th and you have the 22nd identified as a Sabbath. Now, why would God say this twice? If you already know that it's a Sabbath, why would he need to say this again? Well, he's letting you know that nothing's changed. You are to continue to observe his Sabbath. Nothing has changed just because it's a feast day. Okay, let's take a look at the festival of trumpets. Leviticus 23:24. Say to the Israelites, on the first day of the 7th month, this is a new moon, you are to have a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. Again, you have Sabbath lining up with Sabbath. He is reiterating this is to be a Sabbath. Leviticus 23, verse 34 through 36. Say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's festival of tabernacles begins. So we had same kind of thing going on with festival of unleavened bread. Here we go again. On the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's festival of tabernacles begins, and it lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do no regular work. For 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord. And on the 8th day, hold a sacred assembly and present a food offering to the Lord. It is the closing special assembly. Do no regular work. Again, we have the 15th day and we have the 22nd day. Both are Sabbaths. He's lining up his Sabbaths once again. Verse 39. So beginning with the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have gathered the crops of the land, celebrate the festival to the Lord for 7 days. The first day is a day of Sabbath rest, and the 8th day also is a day of Sabbath rest. On the first day, you are to take branches from luxuriant trees, from palms, willows, and other leafy trees, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Here we go with that 7 days again. It's going to end up being actually, it already said that. It said on the first day is a day of Sabbath rest, and the 8th day also is a day of Sabbath rest. So you have the 15th and you have the 22nd. So we've already seen that the first is a Sabbath, the 8th is a Sabbath, the 15th is a Sabbath, the 22nd is a Sabbath. It goes to show that the 29th would be a Sabbath. Now, the first day of the month is a day of consecration, and these Sabbaths are also a consecration. You are consecrating yourself to the Lord, so you should understand it that way. In 2 Chronicles 29, verse 17, the Israelites began the consecration of the first day of the first month, and by the 8th day of the month, they reached the portico of the Lord. For 8 more days, they consecrated the temple of the Lord itself, finishing on the 16th day of the first month. So they begin the consecration on the first day of the month, and they're continuing to do that in this new temple. This is an example to us, right? Because we've been told that we are the temple, and no, we're not like a literal building, but there are aspects of a literal building that we're supposed to understand, that he is fitting us together. He's building us together as living stones in this temple, and that we need to be consecrated to the Lord. And so if you're doing that with a physical object, like let's just take a minute to think about this and rend our heart to it. If you're doing this with a physical object, like you're consecrating the instruments in the temple, you're consecrating the temple, then at some point, if you are really thinking about that in your heart, like what would that even like be like? What would you be understanding? Because obviously instruments are not what's important to God. It's us. It's our souls, our hearts. If you're using such diligence and care to make sure that these items are consecrated to the Lord and that they're not being used for anything else, like do you remember when, good grief, what was his name? Nebuchadnezzar's son. I can't remember his name. But do you remember that he was wicked and he was partying with his friends and he had them go and grab all the, the cups and the utensils from the temple, and they were partying with this, and then God, that hand wrote on the wall, your days are numbered. His name was Belshazzar. I wanted to say Belteshazzar, but I knew that wasn't right. Well, he didn't exactly write. Your days are numbered. What he wrote numbered. What he wrote was Mene Mene Tekel Parsin, and this is what the words mean. Mene means God has counted the days until your kingdom will end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found not good enough. A parson, your kingdom is being taken from you. Do you remember that he was doing that, and that the utensils, like, what does God care about a cup or something like that, right? But he was demonstrating something to us. You are not to be used for this world. If you are an instrument to God, if he is the potter and you're the clay, and you go and prostitute yourself to the world and you say, well, I'm going to go let them use me for a while, you're no longer consecrated. You're no longer part of that temple. All right, so I want to address another issue. One of the claims of lunisolar proponents, by the way, I believe in a lunisolar calendar, but I would not include myself with these lunisolar proponents who are, pitching their ideas on YouTube, because they're not speaking on the word. They're adding things in order to make the puzzle fit. So when I'm talking about lunisolar proponents, I'm talking about like the dominant ideology, I guess, that they put together about what a lunisolar calendar is and means. The only thing that matters is the truth, you guys. It doesn't even matter. Like, if I've been wrong, if I was wrong yesterday, I'm going to admit it today. It doesn't matter if the pieces don't fit. I'm not going to speak about it just so that I can get likes and subscribes on my channel. I mean, obviously, you hear the way that I speak. I'm not concerned about that. I'm strictly concerned about the truth. I'm strictly concerned about restoring the truth so that each one of you can have an opportunity to hear the truth and be saved. You think I'm going to give up eternity for some likes and subscribes? Who cares about that? So one of the claims of these proponents of lunisolar, whatever, it kind of seems like a little bit of a cult. No different from the other side. I mean, really, the other side is worse in my eyes because they're upset and advocating for the Roman calendar. At least these guys maybe are trying to understand truth. But the other are just like, no, we're not going to give up our Saturday. And they say things like, the Jews have kept meticulous records. No, they haven't. Even if they wanted to, they hadn't, because they went into captivity. But here's the issue. They have continually added to the scroll by adding to the calendar, adulterating God's word, reforming his word. And Paul told you, as far as the gospel is concerned, they're enemies for your sake. So if that's what you are saying, if that's what you believe, you are believing something that is not in the Bible. You're believing in opposition to what is actually written in the Bible. You don't go to those who deny Christ to tell you how to live the gospel that you claim you believe in. That's ridiculous. This isn't an ethnic issue. This is a truth issue, because there are Jews who actually, ethnic Jews, who are actual Christians. The first Christians were ethnic Jews. So I'm not speaking about an ethnic issue. I'm speaking about what the word actually says. So the claim that these people are making is that the new moon can't be on the same day as the Sabbath. So, okay, why? And so they'll use, passages like Amos 8:5 and say, well, see, God set Sabbath and new moon as separate. Like, says who? Let's read it. Okay, so God's rebuking the people for saying, when will the new moon be over so we may sell grain, and the Sabbath be ended so that we may market wheat, skimping on the measure, boosting the price, and cheating with dishonest scales? Okay, so when I read this, I think, looks like God is setting new moon and Sabbath in reference to each other. He's not separating them. Says who? There needs to be a pattern of that being God's heart. And as it is, he hasn't separated things. As a matter of fact, he's combined Sabbath with holy days and then calling that Sabbath a special Sabbath or a high Sabbath. We know that's a thing. Why would it be any different with any other set apart feast day, such as new moon? That doesn't make sense. I mean, that is not a viable argument. That's just it's some sort of a principle that someone has come up with out of their own mind. And I'm going to tell you something about that. I've told you many times, if you want to understand scripture, you need to pursue God's heart, because his heart is in his word. And so if you love God, you'll pursue what is it that he loves? What has he established? What are his patterns? If you don't love God, you'll go make up stories to fit your own narrative, because that's your concern. You're not concerned about truth. So in searching God's heart, I'm going to say, well, let me think. Do I know of any example where God has combined his Sabbath with a holy day, for example? Yeah. I just read all of the examples to you, and those are high Sabbaths. Now, one thing I want you to notice is that on Passover for the 14th day of the month, all Passover, by the way, that 14th day of the month, and also the festival of unleavened bread, in Luke 22:1, that's all described as the Passover. It's not separated, right? It's actually all the Passover. But it is, he does separate it for a reason. He wants us to separate out the day that Jesus died and the day that the covenant was extended. So that's the 14th of the month. And it just so happens that he didn't actually make the 14th day of the month a Sabbath. Isn't that interesting? Because usually his pattern would be the first day is going to be a Sabbath for you, and then you observe this for 7 days, and then the 8th day is going to be a Sabbath for you again. But in this case, he didn't do it with Passover. He did not make that a Sabbath. Why do you think? Because it's not a Sabbath. It's on the 14th day of the month. The 15th day of the month is a Sabbath. Kind of interesting, isn't it? So we've always got the first day of the month, that's a Sabbath. The 8th day of the month, that's a Sabbath. The 22nd of the month, that's a Sabbath. The 15th, sorry, I didn't say the 15th, that is also a Sabbath, and the 29th is a Sabbath. Those are 4 sets of 7-day cycles of the moon. And then you have the 30th of the month, that's going to be a work day, and then you go back to the first day of the month, another Sabbath. I hope that this is we're continuing to test what it is that we believe that we've heard from God, okay? This is what God does with me all the time. He tells me, if you believe that you're hearing something from me, you always need to test it with my 2 witnesses, my spirit and the word. My spirit and the word. So if I think I'm hearing something from God, I am not going to go out and say it. I'm going to ask him, all right, our deal, Father, is that you show me in your word that this is true. You got to show me in some other way. There's got to be a second witness. And if you do that, you're not going to speak incorrectly. You'll be able to be certain of what you've heard from God. God has continually confirmed that what he revealed to me yesterday is true. He's continually confirming it. But remember that he's also going to test you. And so you have to make sure that you are concerned about truth, that is the number one thing that you're concerned about, and that you're holding to that above anything else. And if you do that, he will continue to give you wisdom in abundance. Thank you for listening. Please discern this with God.